Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my platitudinous co-host, Chris Rasick. Today, we want to share with you how to beat an Amazon Section 3 suspension from someone who's done it. And that someone is, unfortunately, me. On September 27th of 2024, just about 3 weeks ago, I was hit with a Section 3 suspension right after a pretty good sourcing session. It was a Friday night at about 8 p.m. And after reading the email that I got, I sent a quick message. I let Chris know. And then I went about my evening and I slept soundly, confidently, knowing that I'd be able to beat it. And so what we want to do is we want to walk you through soup to nuts today, A to Z, what happened from the beginning to the very end and how you can use this to beat your own Section 3 when or if it comes to pass. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. We have painstakingly taken several minutes to get ready for this show. So we want to make a deal with you. If you get something from this episode, do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you might be listening, and drop a quick comment. The only way we know how to grow this show is by showing the platforms you all want to see and hear more of what we have to say. And you show them that by interacting. We'll keep our end of the deal, keep showing up and bringing you content, education, and guests each week. And you guys do your side and just hit that like button. All right, let's go ahead and let's dive in. So, Chris, I thought we'd start from the very beginning. So, what is a Section 3? Why are these called Section 3 suspensions and all of that stuff? And as much as I hate to do this, I thought that it might be a good idea to actually read the important part of the Section 3 agreement that we sign when we become Amazon sellers. So I'm going to start here. Section 3 refers to the agreement that you agree to when you become a seller. And Section 3 is called term and termination. And I cut out all the fluff that's not really important. And I got it down to just the important part, which is we may suspend or terminate your account or this agreement immediately if we determine that A, you have materially breached the agreement and failed to cure within 7 days of a cure notice, unless your breach exposes us to liability toward a third party, in which case we are entitled to reduce or waive the aforementioned cure period at our reasonable discretion. And I'm going to stop here for a moment, okay? Because it says here that if you have breached the agreement, then you get 7 days to cure the problem. But they also say, which is what happens to most people with a Section 3, my account was not suspended, okay? However, my ability to ship inbound was suspended and getting any money out of the account was suspended. So, in effect, you're suspended, okay? And I did not get that 7-day cure notice. I did get to, give them evidence that everything was right in this Section 3, but they're able to waive that 7-day cure notice because they thought, or they state, that the breach may expose them to liability toward a third party. Now, in most cases of a Section 3, that they are suspecting you of selling counterfeit goods or something like that, in which case the liability toward them with a third party would be allowing counterfeit goods on the platform, which is against the law. It could be sued by, brand owner, that kind of thing. All right. Now it goes on to say, B, your account has been or our controls identify that it may be used for deceptive or fraudulent or illegal activity. Now, make note of that word controls, because that means bots. It does not have to be a human. It could be a bot. C, your use of the services is capitalized, that is Amazon services, has harmed, or our controls, there's that word again, identify that it might harm other sellers, customers, or Amazon's legitimate interests. D, your account health rating falls below our published thresholds for deactivation. Or E, if we are required to do so by law. And then they go on to say that we will promptly notify you of any such termination or suspension via email or similar means, including Seller Central, indicating the reason and any options to appeal, except where we have reason to believe that providing this information will hinder the investigation or prevention of deceptive, fraudulent, or illegal activity, or will enable you to circumvent our safeguards. So, all the reasons that they can suspend your account, it's basically we can suspend your account at will. Now, that's not comforting, okay? And so reading this, I don't think makes a seller feel all warm and fuzzy. Uh, and so I think we need to take a step back and also say, okay, sure. Amazon puts this out so that they can essentially suspend any seller for any reason whatsoever. And even really say, well, we don't have to give you any information because it might hinder our investigation. And so any information that you are given is, you're lucky. Now, on the other hand, if we zoom out a little bit, even though the Section 3 suspensions are coming in hot and heavy right now, I don't think Amazon actually wants to boot sellers off the platform. It, it
Right.
wouldn't make sense, right? I mean,
Right.
what, 68% of sales on Amazon come from third-party sellers. Amazon gets to keep about what, 35% of those of that gross merchandise value for themselves, without having any cost of goods sold whatsoever. Just happens to run through their supply chain. It seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and if the point is to avoid harm to Amazon, I mean, they certainly can't shut down, any kind of significant portion of 60+% of the catalog being sold by third-party sellers. That's they want third-party sellers. You have to think about the reach of Amazon, the ultimate goals of Amazon. So the conspiracies, we should have picked off like different conspiracies as we go through this as well.
Mhm.
But the conspiracy that Amazon wants to get rid of third-party sellers, I 0% credibility in my mind. Simply because of the size that Amazon is and how much their catalog depends on third-party sellers.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
100%. I mean, in a time right now when, if we want to say Amazon and Walmart are, locking horns and going after, who's going to be the king of the e-commerce mountain, it would not make sense for Amazon to want to get rid of uh, of their biggest weapon in their arsenal, which is the third party seller. You know,
right,
so
especially now you mentioned Walmart, especially when those sellers that may be jettisoned from the platform have somewhere else to go.
exactly, yeah. I mean, we could argue, oh well, they've always had a place to go. It's eBay, but I mean, come on, you know, like, yes, eBay is great for those one-off things. eBay is great to liquidate some inventory, or you happen to come across a cool find at a thrift store. Yeah, eBay is cool for that. But if you want to push some weight, eBay is just not the place for you, you know?
Right.
Hey, Amazon sellers, are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your FBA business? Well, say goodbye to the chaos and hello to Boxum, the all-in-one software that streamlines your shipments, inventory, and profitability tracking in just a few clicks. With Boxum, you'll cut your shipment time in half, gain real-time insights into your business, and keep your inventory under control, all from one simple, intuitive dashboard. Don't waste time. Try Boxum today and take your Amazon FBA game to the next level. Check it out over at cleartheshelf.com/Boxum and start your 14-day free trial now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different model, you know. I mean,
Mhm.
it's think about replens, you know, like replens on Amazon. You know, we pretty much know where that is. You know, we have a general idea of the types of places that we could find that stuff. But then think of replens on eBay. You know,
Mhm.
people aren't doing everyday shopping. They aren't doing a lot of it. They do some of it. It is surprising, some of the normal household wares that can be sold on eBay, but not at any kind of regularity or consistency.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess the next question is like, why are these happening? Like, what, if Amazon doesn't want to get rid of third party sellers, then why are they suspending what seems like hundreds or even thousands of third party sellers on the platform? Uh, Now, Andy Jassy is not coming out and saying, "Hey guys, this is what's going on." I mean, that would be pretty freaking sweet. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So we've got to kind of read between the lines and try to figure it out for ourselves. And I think, honestly, I think it's pretty clear. I did see someone who I respect, who runs an excellent Amazon business, state on Twitter. They're like, oh, we really saw Section 3's increase when wholesale got popular on Twitter. Um, interesting correlation. Interesting correlation. And I said that's fascinating. I said I don't necessarily agree there because as Amazon, it's known that Amazon employees have been around social media for a long, long time. And I hate to admit how old I am because in the Amazon space, like, I'm walking around with a cane. But I've seen this cycle over and over again of what's popular on Amazon in the Amazon communities. And there was a time when like Facebook was the dominating platform for Amazon FBA communities. And we knew, matter of fact, I mean, we have one of the largest. And there's three big FBA groups on Facebook, and FBA Today is one of the biggest ones. It's got almost 60,000 people in it. That is, we know that a portion of those are or have been Amazon employees. It's not hard to figure out, especially if they work at Amazon. If they live in Seattle and they say they work at Amazon.com, it's pretty clear, like, yeah, they're probably, some manager or something like that over at Amazon. There are a lot of other people who are, like from other countries, and they'll say, oh yeah, I work at Amazon.com, and they're just, they're like a VA or something. Those ones are also pretty easy to figure out. But
Yeah.
so I don't think it's that. I think we might over index for how much Amazon is watching our interactions on social media. Now, I
Mhm.
will say Ron over at Amazon Seller Help, he interacts quite a bit with folks on Twitter. So it's not like they don't see the stuff over there, but to think that they're taking the time to go through, I mean, tens of thousands of replies in all of these threads on Twitter and then saying, you know what? It's time to start section threeing a bunch of people from that. I don't think that's the case.
Right.
But I do think that there are actual reasons that Amazon has increased this. And honestly, I think it's because they want to be able to say, we've got the most secure platform. We are the most customer centric. We we know exactly where everything is coming from in our store, uh, and we can prove it. They can back that up with data. There's an interesting thing I read that said that in 2023 Amazon took, I don't know, it was like a million actions against sellers. Now, when they say actions, that could be an IP complaint, that could be a suspension, that could be, I mean, it could be a number of things. Uh, Based on the number of sellers on Amazon, that's really a pretty low number. Uh,
Right.
and if anybody's actually paying attention, which we know the FTC is paying pretty close attention right now, uh, they would be able to figure out, oh, well, they've got 2 million sellers with active Amazon accounts. No, not all of those actually sell anything. And they've only taken a million actions. I mean, come on. You get 4 IP complaints on a good afternoon. So a million actions in total is not nearly enough. Nor does it fix, the problems that Amazon is starting to see more and more frequently, which are counterfeit goods, inauthentic goods, and so on. So
I mean,
I
that's
think
that's
there's
what,
a
5% of the population of sellers.
yeah.
Yeah. So one action for every 20 sellers. You
Hmm.
know, so think about that number when you think that Amazon is picking on you. Particularly. And unfortunately, if you've had several actions taken against you, you really do have an inordinate amount on average. So, but that's a pretty low number.
Yeah. So I mean, so the question remains, why are these happening? Well, here's the correlation that I thought of, and you and I have talked about this already, but we know that there have been theft rings. It's and organized retail theft has been talked about by the National Retail Federation. It's been on CNN. It's been on all of these different news channels, and of course, companies are using it as an excuse to be able to raise prices. We've got to combat this organized retail theft. Uh, but you know, a couple of them have made national news. You and I talked about that mother in California who had stolen like $8 million worth of makeup from Ulta, Sephora, and places like that, and she's selling it on Amazon. So I the correlation I made is Section 3s had been happening before that, but once that hit the news and Amazon's good name is drugged through the mud right along with a lady who's stolen $8 million worth of mascara, Amazon seemed to pour gas on this fire and say, "We gotta figure out where everything's coming from." Um,
Yeah.
which,
And she
I mean,
had
honestly, it makes sense.
she flew people to different parts of the country. That's like when we say organized theft, like it wasn't just kind of meeting in the basement, and like, all right, here's your ski mask or what, like
Right?
this was kind of, it was a bit sophisticated. Um,
Yeah.
she had a network, is probably the more accurate term for it. So, before we get too far, away from these theft rings, when I hear, like when I saw the news, and I saw that lady, and they kind of exposed what she had done, and they exposed her operation. Um, my default is detachment from that,
Mhm.
right? It's very hard for me to connect any dots to see how that actually affects me, and
Right.
even with the lens of, I sell on Amazon, it's still, I still somehow think that is happening on another floor of, if we're all sellers in a big Amazon skyscraper, that's on a whole other floor that I don't even know about. I don't know anybody on that floor. That's somewhere else.
Mhm.
That's that's not necessarily true, right? That's kind of a misconception.
I I think so, yeah. I mean, I'd like to be able to have that thought, but, like, it does affect, especially those of us who are doing, like, regular online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, because, I mean, what's to say, let's just say Amazon doesn't know anything about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, and someone at Amazon reads that article and they go and they ask, the head of marketplace, hey, how are people buying things, and then selling them on Amazon? And they're like, oh, well, there's wholesale, there's online arbitrage, and there's retail arbitrage. And and then the VP, or whoever who knows nothing about selling on Amazon's like, oh, so you mean they're all going into these stores and they're stealing stuff, and then, so I mean, yeah, it absolutely affects us, because we can't expect everyone at Amazon to actually understand how the marketplace works, and how, 95% or more of the sellers are good, and then we got a couple of bad apples. Uh, so yeah, I think it absolutely does affect us.
And if you think about it, these theft rings, they're at stores that we've heard of. They're at stores
Mhm.
that we shop at, right? Which means, and they're probably, I don't know how I don't know how much credit to give this lady and the people in this. I'm purposely trying to not display a lot of knowledge about their criminal mindsets, uh, but like, are they told to try to get as popular and bigger brand names? Do they have set criteria for what they smash and grab or whatever, or is it literally just, but even so, even if they were indiscriminate, just kind of running their hand and knocking it all into a garbage bag, you're going to end up with popular stuff. So when
Yeah.
they move this stuff, what I'm getting at is it's quite possible that if we get a sale at Walgreens on a major beauty brand or something like that, they do a buy one get one free, or a buy one get one 50% off, and then you tack on a 20% coupon. When we send that in, these theft rings are, after they receive the stolen goods and they get it back to, their home base, the thieves' den, it's basically the same thing. They're doing the same thing from that point on that we do when we do arbitrage, correct?
Yeah.
They're labeling it and they're sending it into Amazon. So it is not a ridiculous thought to think that when you pull up the other sellers on a listing, that on something that you're selling, that you are amongst people who are listing stolen goods, correct?
Yeah. I mean, you have to think that, it's one of the reasons I tell people don't ever uh commingle. And I know it's not called commingling anymore, but forever, forever and a day it was called commingling, where you use the manufacturer UPC rather than putting on your own FNSKU label. Uh because back when commingling was first starting, like, Amazon had no idea. They would, matter of fact, it's one of the first things I ever got in trouble for was commingling, because I sold a new item, someone commingled a used item, Amazon sent the used item when I was selling a new item, and the customer was upset. And there was no way to prove it to Amazon that I was selling new and not a used item as new. And heck, I would imagine that nowadays, if people are doing this, if they're going out and stealing something, it would probably be in their best interest to use no FNSKU label, and just use the manufacturer's UPC. Because, and sure, Amazon says, "Oh well, we know, whose is whose," but come on. if they're not putting any kind of label on it and they're just sticking it in one of those yellow bins with all the other inventory, and two or three people are not using FNSKU labels, how do you know? How does Amazon know,
Right.
whose is whose? It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Especially when entire shipments are marked as received with zero. I mean, think about the
Exactly.
employees that are handling your stuff. I mean, they to get through stuff faster, they're just marking stuff as boxes as empty. So that, yeah, that's
Yeah.
very tough to believe.
Yeah, it's not a bunch of rocket surgeons unloading your boxes at Amazon warehouses,
Right.
Yeah, but even outside of the organized retail theft, which there's dueling information. One is it's one of the biggest and worst problems in the country, which I mean, I don't know if we should go that far, but it is a big deal. It's hundreds of millions of dollars every year at a minimum, and now National Retail Federation, they're foregoing their study on retail theft this year for some reason. I would imagine it's sort of political because that kind of became a hot potato. Is it retail theft that's causing prices to go up? Is it inflation? Is it all these other things? And now it seems like we're not going to get those numbers this year. But there's more to it because the the store is not the only place where shrink happens for these companies. Do you remember that story? And I can't remember where I saw the picture of it, but there was a an overhead picture of a rail yard in California, and on the ground next to the train cars were just smashed boxes as far as you could see. Well, that is from freight theft. And if you don't know what freight theft is, I mean, just go watch a mob movie, okay? Or it fell off the back of a truck. Maybe something that you've heard in the past. Like that's literally what it is. People still do. And I don't know if they do it Fast and Furious style, where they're driving up on semi trucks at 90 miles an hour on the freeway, but people do still knock off semi trucks, rail cars, and steal goods before they ever even make it to their end destination. And that is actually a very big operation to this day. Another set of hundreds of millions of dollars a year. These goods have to go somewhere, and they're not all going to the local swap meet or anything like that. A lot of them are finding their way onto e-commerce platforms because why we take things to the largest marketplaces we possibly can because the volume that we can sell. I mean, that's the reason we sell on Amazon. Now, just because someone is a crook and they're stealing their inventory, it doesn't mean they don't understand how to properly fence the stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And especially, the biggest marketplace, a marketplace that grabs more than 50 cents of every online dollar. And they don't require a paper trail in the beginning, you know, you you put it up for sale and it's whatever percent after the fact,
Mhm.
on whether they need you to prove, uh, I forget the term, but basically the paper trail of where these goods came from. And
Mhm.
but of course that at that point, who knows whose account you're using or what, burner accounts. I'm sure that's something that they're able to circumvent fairly easily. Did you see the article of that stretch in Mexico between, I forget what city in Mexico it is, but there's it's basically it's from a port in Mexico to the U.S. border,
Mhm.
and I believe it was somewhere the truck drivers basically said it's about a 1 in 10 chance that you'll get hijacked.
That's so
Uh,
crazy.
Yeah, it's just for whatever reason there's a stretch, and it's the jurisdiction or authorities that cover that section of this highway is a little murky. Um, but yeah, they said that's basically the chance that you take, and it's not like Goodfellas, where you just kind of you get a little tap on the butt from the gangster robbing you, and you get to run away. Sometimes these drivers are assaulted and not taken well care of.
Hmm.
So
That's 10% chance. That's nuts. And
yeah,
I'm sure they're probably not compensated for taking that risk.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no
that's
mention of hazard pay.
uh and so now outside of these two things, which my opinion is that these retail theft rings and maybe the freight theft, those are probably the two biggest public, really public facing reasons that Amazon might be doing this. Those are the things that have made the headlines, on yeah, I, I know that I'm pretty sure that mom, that housewife, I'm pretty sure she made the front page of CNN or Yahoo. Okay. Like that one was a big, big story. I know that the freight theft story, I know that also like made front page somewhere. Um, but there is more to it. I'm going to lump these ones together. You've got Discord wholesalers and Telegram wholesalers. Now, you will see most people on Twitter, on social media say, LL, if they're reaching out to you via Discord or via Telegram, like you need to run the other way. And they're not wrong. You absolutely should not be doing business with people who are approaching you. Oh yeah, join my Telegram deals group. Oh yeah, message me over Telegram or WhatsApp or Discord, and I can sell you goods. Um, th- those are not the goods you want to sell. And I'd love to say, oh well, no one's fallen for this stuff, but I mean, unfortunately, I've had to help too many people who, when I say, "Oh yeah, show me your receipts from your suspension," and they're like, "Oh well, it's from this guy George at George123 at gmail.com. I do business with him on Telegram." That I've dealt with at least a handful of those, trying to help those people. It's essentially a lost cause because you have no idea where their inventory is coming from. You know, are they buying gray market goods, which we'll talk about here in a second? You know, are they the fence for the people handling the freight theft? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, you got to launder that stuff. People don't think about people think laundering is just for money, but that's not the case. Inventory is pretty easy to track these days. And so if you need to get it into you know, out of one hand and then kind of out into the marketplace, makes it a whole heck of a lot easier if you take it, you fence it off to somebody who sells it to 20 or 30 different people, and those 20 or 30 people take it to eBay, Walmart, Amazon, Poshmark, Macari, the local swap meet or market, and all these different places. And the person buying it's like, oh, I got a great deal. Never once thinking about, I wonder who my supplier's supplier is. And why is that? Why is nobody thinking, oh, I deal with this guy on Telegram, or I got to download the Tor browser to buy from him. I wonder, who his supplier is. Like, are are sellers, are they just seeing the potential profit when those kind of things come along? Or, I mean, there's got to be something that says this seems a little off, right?
Yeah, there's got to be. Or I mean, do people not think of the where their inventory originates from? Do they not think it's that important? Um, because I what I keep thinking of when you were describing that, um, I keep thinking about when I'm sourcing online, for online arbitrage. and I'll find, when you'll go to, Google Shopping, or you pull it up in Google, and you're looking for different sources. And a bunch of times there's that product where if it's $49.95 at pretty much everywhere, give or take a few dollars, couple people undercutting them. But then there's some store that you've never heard of that's got it for $32.95, free shipping with no minimum threshold, and Google doesn't have a rating for their store. It's like, those are the ones my VAs love putting those in there. Like, oh, they think they found a gem, and then you look, and it doesn't take long, but you start digging into the website, and it's like, okay, the email is at Gmail, like it's the store name at Gmail, and there's a bunch of different things you could do if you don't know, you obviously you Google the address, that saved me multiple times. Something that not everybody thinks of right away, but check social media followings. If they don't have very many followers, I should say more followers, makes me feel a little bit better. It's kind of a sliding
Mhm.
scale of confidence there. It's tough to be illegitimate and have 5 figures worth of followers. Um, the your ratio of running into a Karen, blowing your whole operation up. Um, I gotta think that's it doesn't take a very big population for something like, or Chad. Sorry, Karens and
Yes, or
Chads.
Chad.
Yes. Um,
Looking at you, craftsman-tool.shop. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
I just looked at one of those the other day.
Yeah.
And it looks legit. That's a good looking
Yeah,
site. They did a
right?
really good job. Yeah, tool dash craftsman. Yeah. So, yeah, but it's got, I mean, you have to vet, just like you vet your sources, or your websites that you're looking at, and when you're doing OA. um maybe that's it. Maybe there are people that buy from tool dash craftsman, or what's the Stanley one, the Stanley dupe.
Oh,
uh
yeah. I've run
you
across
know what
that a
I'm
couple times.
Yeah, my VA, they spent like a whole day just loading me up with Stanley, because I paid him for nothing that day. um but apparently there are people that buy from these sites, and they don't,
Mhm.
they don't bat an eye at it, or think something's too good to be true. So it's got to be that same dynamic with these wholesalers.
I guess I can see that. I forget that I'm the weird one. I forget that, when I'm at a store and I see something on the shelf, my whole thought process is, man, like this came from some factory, whether that was in China or the US or whatever, and then it had to hop on a boat and, get to a port, and then it goes from a port to maybe the manufacturer inspects it, or the brand owner inspects it, and then it goes, to a wholesaler, and then it goes to it gets bought by a buyer, and then it makes its way to probably a distribution center, and then the distribution center sends it out to the Publix, the Walmart, whoever bought it. um, I don't know, that's something I've thought about for a long time. Maybe so I'm the weird one. I'm the weird one who thinks about like where it comes from. uh yeah, while we're on this topic, we should probably also maybe even talk about like uh those automation bastards. Uh
Hmm.
that's another one. You know, there unfortunately there are still people falling for this. The FTC is getting more and more involved. But these people will basically take over your Amazon account, and then they're going to sell product that you purchase from them, but you have no idea where it comes from. Are they drop shipping from Walmart and Sam's Club? Are they going out and doing retail arbitrage and then selling it on 10 or 15 different accounts? Are they the ones buying those goods from the freight thieves, and the gray market goods? Like, you have no idea, and you have no idea what kind of provenance they have for the stuff they're selling on your account. But at the end of the day, you're the one who gets their account suspended, and that person goes on and gets another automation client.
Right. I we did an entire podcast episode on why Amazon automation is bullshit, and it underperformed. Uh,
Mhm.
but I thought that was a good thing at first. I was like, well, good. This is we're preaching to the choir. Everybody already
Mhm.
knows this. Um, but I don't know. Maybe we didn't quite have the reach. But you're right. There's been no slowdown in the amount of ads for it that I see.
Mhm.
Um, maybe they kind of disguise it a little better. It's like you hear somebody talking about Amazon and they don't reveal that it's an automation deal until further into the ad or whatever. Try to pull you in, but I think that's more marketing rather than uh, being evasive because they are automation. But um, yeah, I mean, you have to ask yourself, think about the volume again. We've gone over just how much volume Amazon does. It's staggering, and that's why it's always worth repeating. Like I was writing a copy of the newsletter, and it feels so redundant
Mhm.
uh, until you realize that not everyone realize. But then you'll hear something where people think, "Oh, Amazon's got it out for me." Like, no, they don't. They don't know you exist.
Yep.
It's a combination of like the spotlight effect. It's thinking that people are paying more attention to you than they really are, and not realizing just how big Amazon truly is. So
Mhm.
that's why this stuff is when you hear that they're hiring 250,000 seasonal employees for the holiday season. Like, think of how many people that is. That's about 3 times uh the amount of people that watched the Cowboys get demolished over the last weekend. That place seats like 92,000. Um I mean, and that's just temporary help. That's on top of everyone that already works there. That's not only is that a testament to the volume or the impact that Q4 has on the marketplace, uh, but it's an incredible testament to the volume that Amazon does overall. So that's why this
Mhm.
stuff is repeated over and over again. Because it's very, very difficult. Once something gets so big, it becomes very difficult to you lose perspective on once you're talking scale to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just Googled really quickly, like what cities have 250,000 people in them. Uh, and now I don't know if this is right or not, but Google says Boston has a population of
Hmm.
250,000 people. So uh, Amazon is essentially hiring the equivalent of every single masshole from Boston, uh, to work at their warehouses and stuff over just Q4. That's insane.
Right. I remember the article. They were actually projecting. It was in Arizona somewhere. I want to say it was like the Phoenix area, but they were actually projected to exhaust the entire labor supply of a section like a tri-county area in like Phoenix, one of the metropolitan areas. But they just because of the size of Amazon and the turnover, obviously as well. But they were projected within, I want to say like 10 years, maybe 15 years tops. They're projected to exhaust the supply of potential Amazon employees.
That's insane. That's insane. All right, let's talk a couple more reasons why these section threes are happening. The other thing, it is gray market goods, and I don't hear this term thrown around a lot. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but gray market goods are just goods that are not supposed to be sold in a particular marketplace. So let me explain how this happens. You may get in with a supplier and they seem completely legit. Everything looks good. But maybe their business is actually set up in Hong Kong or the Middle East somewhere. And that seems a little strange, but everything else is good. The website is good. They've got a warehouse here in the United States. All of that stuff is good. Well, chances are they are a legitimate, you know, distributor of a brand's goods, but they may have an agreement in place where they're only supposed to sell it in other marketplaces. I know about this a little bit because I have a friend who got caught up in this. It was a vitamin company, and he worked with a supplier. They were brand authorized, but they were authorized to buy these products, ship them to their warehouse in New Jersey, and then ship them overseas and sell them in other marketplaces. But instead of going through all that expense and trouble, they would turn around and they would sell them to people here in the United States who were going to sell them on marketplaces. Uh, Brand owners don't like gray market goods. They're not necessarily counterfeit, or anything like that. It's just the brand owner may want more control over their MAP or their minimum advertised pricing here in the United States. They may have exclusive relationships with certain suppliers. Like Pattern, for example, is one of those that holds a lot of sway over a lot of different brands on Amazon. Uh, and or maybe the brand themselves sell on Amazon. And they want to control it all themselves, but they're willing to allow other people to invest the time, the effort, and the risk in other marketplaces where maybe they don't have a foothold. And that's where we get gray market goods, which are also can be a serious problem, because even though they're not counterfeit, and yeah, you could get a legitimate invoice from your supplier, but if we go back one more step and the brand gets involved, you've got an issue because those items weren't supposed to be sold in the United States. So they're not black market and they're not white hat, so they're called gray market goods. Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Rasick has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show.
How do you navigate that? I mean, is it a matter of just, if you've got the relationship and you've gotten that far with a distributor, you just ask the question?
I think so. I think one, you ask the question, and two, I mean, if the price is, and I think a lot of these, the price is just too good, you know, because the supplier, like the distributor or the supplier, whoever you're buying it from, like they need to move this stuff quickly. They're not into running like a serious business necessarily. They're getting, maybe manufacturer direct pricing, and they'll typically take a smaller cut to move this stuff pretty quick. So if the deal seems too good, that's one way. But I mean, honestly, you should just ask, even if you don't have a super close relationship. Before I bought anything from a supplier, I just be like, hey, I'm like, you guys are authorized to sell this in the United States, right? And it's very easy to find out where someone's business is registered. Like it's not a hard process. Like just do 30 seconds worth of Googling on the business, find where the LLC is, find where it's registered. If it's registered in Hong Kong, then maybe think about that for a second. Why would they register in Hong Kong? Not weird to register in Delaware or Las Vegas or Wyoming. I understand why people in the US do that. But if I'm going to register a new LLC, why would I ever take the time to do it in a foreign country? So the
That,
final thing
that
is,
It seems to be a theme. We keep running into this. If the price is too good to be true, I think that might be the common denominator here. But
Yeah, especially when your cost of goods are zero, margin is pretty easy to hit. So the final reason I think these are happening are there are legitimate counterfeit goods on the Amazon platform. Um, my wife just got back from Dubai, and she waited to tell me this story until she was home. She didn't tell me this story while she was there, but I believe that these shops, there are some shops over in the UAE called souks. I think that's, if I'm mispronouncing it, it's just because I'm dumb. It's not because like I'm trying to say it wrong on purpose. But so she asked the driver to take her to one of these places, and he drops her off and says, "Oh, it's right down there." And she walks down an alley into some apartment. Okay. And they have, purses and things like that for sale. And because she walks in the house with a brand new purse, and oh, I'm like, that's really nice. I didn't realize you bought a nice purse on vacation, which, if you know my wife, that's not unexpected. She likes purses. And I'm like, where'd you get that? Did you get that at one of the big malls or something like that? And then she goes to tell me this story. And she's like, I bought it just so that I bought something from him. And then I got out of there as quickly as I could because it seemed a little sketchy. And it is a knockoff Christian Dior purse. I can't tell the difference. I'm sure someone can, but to me, I'm like, oh, that's a Christian Dior. And I was getting ready to pull out the credit card statements and find out how much it was going to run, but it was $150. Well, people are doing this on Amazon. If you go to places like AliExpress, you can buy, and I hate to pick on this brand, but you can buy fake Nike socks. You know, you can buy, fake Adidas sweatbands, and if it's a brand that is big enough, there is some factory in China that's knocking it off, and it's very possible that the knockoff is just pretty daggone good, and you may not be able to tell at first glance, and that is right down to the bag the socks come in. Okay. There are people who don't know that Nike items on AliExpress are counterfeit, and they will buy them and they will sell them on Amazon and be like, I am a genius because I got these Nike socks for $3.99 a six pack and I'm selling them for $21.99, and nobody else knows what I'm doing. Um, yeah, we do. Okay. And Amazon is figuring that out, and they want to make sure that those kind of goods are not showing up on the platform. But it happens.
it's it's amazing to me the detail too.
Yeah.
Like when my oldest son, I'll never forget it. I'll never let him forget it either. He was big into sneakers, and he wanted all the stuff, and I am just the kind of person where a growing foot has a certain ceiling for the amount of dollars that I'm willing to invest into
Yep.
their footwear, right? Um, and I imagine everyone has some sort of ceiling. It's lower than the child themselves, obviously. But I can't. I refuse to pay $200. Like I won't spend $200 on my own foot that doesn't grow anymore. That I could wear until my toes pop out the bottom. Uh, Call me cheap, whatever. I am. I wouldn't disagree with you. But so he wanted a pair of LeBrons. LeBron had his own sneaker. He was still in Cleveland the first time. Um, he's my child's in his 20s now, so we're going back a ways. And he found this site somewhere somehow that was selling LeBron James sneakers, and he bought them, and I forget what the price was, but it was ridiculously cheap. Again, it was too good to be true. And these things showed up, and they were called Leron Tames. and, And he wore them. He wore them at least a couple times. Until the backlash got to him. But we still laugh about that at family dinners and every once in a while. But yeah, Leron Thames. But but now to think about how sophisticated now the counterfeit game is. Like what I've never been to China, but they'll make an entire factory specifically to make these counterfeit goods and actually be good at it. That blows my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if, I mean, are they doing one run of Nike socks and one run of Adidas socks? Like, yeah, I don't know, but if they're like, oh, well, we could make, plain black socks that are going to be sold, unbranded at, I don't know, the Dollar Tree, or we can sell these Nike unisex lightweight quick drying socks for $18 a 3-pack on AliExpress. Like, I mean, it's pretty hard to say, oh yeah, let's sell these for a whole lot cheaper, you know. Uh, and I mean, I get it. Plus, business ethics in China are different than they are here in the United States. Just the way it is, And if you don't believe me or you think I'm, just making this up, go read Shoe Dog, or several other stories about people who have done business in China. This kind of stuff is it's all right. It's just part of business. It's just the way it goes. So, yeah, you gotta be really, really careful about that kind of stuff, because not all counterfeits. The first counterfeit Rolex I ever bought, uh, I couldn't tell the difference, till I had it looked at. So
They say it's the second hand, right? Doesn't they don't tick.
yeah,
Actual Rolex kind of sweep.
they have that perpetual motion. So
Yeah.
all right, we've talked about why, we've talked about, what it is. Let's talk about the process, like what actually happens during the process. So the very first thing is you're going to get a notification from Amazon, just like they say in the section 3, all right? And mine came via email. That's typically where it's going to come to. And I want to read it to you so you know exactly what it says and what you should expect. So, my email said your account is currently under review in accordance with Section 3 of the Amazon Business Solutions Agreement. During the review, FBA shipment creation ability will be disabled and your funds will be withheld in accordance with our funds withholding policy. And then they tell you why it happened. We've taken this measure because we believe that your account or a related account may have been used to engage in deceptive or illegal activities that harm customers and our store, such as the sale of counterfeit inventory, thereby infringing intellectual property rights. For more information, see Section 3 of the Amazon Services Business Solution Agreement. Now, here's what's interesting, because I went down a little rabbit hole. All right. And Amazon says things in one place and say something totally different in the other. All right. Uh, we're worried that you're going to harm customers and our store. And then there's another place, I think it's in the business solutions agreement, that states that Amazon is just a middleman between customers and sellers, and they have nothing to do with, what's going on. So it's very easy how Amazon kind of gaslights us. You're selling in our store. These are our customers. You're lucky to be here. And then in the other breath, it's what do you mean? What do you mean it's our fault? You know, it's funny, but it's not funny. Okay. So then Amazon goes on to say, well, what happens now? To demonstrate the authenticity of your account and inventory, you're required to show up for a video interview verification. And we're going to dive a little bit deep on this because I think a lot of people are doing these wrong. All right. Uh, how do I verify my identity and inventory supply chain? Well, you must complete virtual identity verification via video interview. by following these instructions. Now, who does Amazon want at the interview? They want the owner and operator of this account to attend. All right. Depending on your business model, we understand there may be additional business partners who are integral to your business operations. These additional parties may also attend the verification interview as long as they have substantiating documentation showing their relationship to the business. I would highly suggest that if you're the person who's on the account, you don't have anyone else show up with you. You want to talk about confusing someone who doesn't really know the intricacies of this side of the house. Having two people show up to a video interview is going to be a great way to do that. All right. What documents are required to complete your instant identity verification? It actually took more like 45 minutes. Make sure you have the original physical and digital copies of the following documents. They wanted a valid government issued photo ID. All right. Needed to include full name, date of birth, etc. All right. They wanted bank or credit card statement. I gave them both. In case of having a registered business. So if you're a sole proprietor, you don't necessarily need this. But if you have an LLC, an S Corp, or any other type of business, you need to have the registration document. Okay. It needs to contain the name of the business owner or legal representative, business operating name, license number, registration number, official seals from the state, the business address, date of incorporation, the status, all of that. All right. They also wanted supply chain documents such as invoices and I'm gonna really hit on this word here because everyone says they don't work. Receipts. All right. Says that in an email directly from Amazon. Receipts do work. Hard stop. These need to include the item's description, the quantities, the supplier's name, the supplier phone number, supplier address, and website. You can, of course, remove pricing information. They wanted proof of delivery, bill of lading, import and export documents, customs clearance documents, and authorization letters from brands and licensed brand distributors are other examples of documents that may be requested. We need to stop here for a moment because here is a place where I think people often get confused. And this is one of those reasons that online arbitrage and retail arbitrage is dead. Well, they're asking me for, letters of authorization from the brand or licensed brand distributors. Okay. No, that's not what it says. It says authorization letters from brands and licensed brand distributors are other examples of documents that may be requested. All right. Amazon might ask for them. Okay. I'm not saying that they will not. Chances are they're going to be asking for those more frequently if your supply chain is not good. All right. If you're buying from that Telegram supplier, you're buying from that Discord supplier, maybe you're, picking up some items from a gray market supplier, then they're going to start asking for those kinds of things. Because you want to know who can often get authorization letters. Legitimate mom and pop suppliers from inside the USA who have been working with a brand for the last 10 or 15 years. They have a relationship, right? The people who are fencing goods from freight theft, the people who are, supposed to be selling them in other marketplaces, they're not going to get that kind of information from the brand or from the manufacturer. It's just not going to happen.
I wonder if is this a bit of like middle child syndrome? Like Amazon, because I keep as you're going through that, I was thinking about all of the different legitimate sourcing ways that sellers on Amazon acquire their goods.
Mhm.
You'll have the brand themselves, obviously. You can have distributors. There's quite a range of legitimate documentation that you could present if you were asked by Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like Amazon acknowledges, like, okay, you're not the brand itself, and okay, you're not working directly with the brand. They're not going to write you a letter like, yeah, Chris and Chris, they're cool with us. So it's almost like they're like to the arbitrageurs, they're just like, yeah, no, for a sale doctrine, yeah, I mean, you guys are good, but get out of the way, you know,
Right.
like we have all this stuff, so you almost have to frame it like, okay, here's the list of official documentation that you would have, but then you get down to the bottom of the list, and it's like they're like, okay, what we're looking for is we want to eliminate these people, and so then they're like, what, throw in the word receipts to shut the arbitrageurs up, like they're fine,
Right.
just tell them to go play, because I, it's kind of how I get, it's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. Amazon knows that they need the arbitrage seller. We're going to be the ones who take care of the long tail. Which, if you're not sure what the long tail is, go read the book The Long Tail. You'll understand why marketplaces are so powerful. Okay. Uh, thing is Pattern can't do that. Okay. They cannot offer the items that sell once every 3 months on Amazon. It doesn't cash flow well. But if it's, oh well, I'm going to spend $5 and I'm going to sit on this for 3 months, but yeah, it's going to sell for 50. The arbitrage seller can do that. um and so they know that they need them. On the other hand, yeah, i- that's not who's selling like the volume. I know that you and we know some big arbitrage sellers. We have been able to interview the outliers. We have not interviewed the folks who they want to make an extra $1,000 a month. And that's fine. Like that, we know that that's a good thing. That's life-changing money. But that's where the majority of arbitrage sellers are. And so, the ones doing the right thing are not really the ones who Amazon is after here, in my opinion. All right. So Amazon talks about proof of delivery, but here's the other thing. Okay. They also want order confirmation, order shipping, or fulfillment update documents for all of the orders placed for the below requested ASINs. This one, yeah, I expected all the other stuff. This is the one that actually surprised me the most. All right. They want order confirmation. They don't just want receipts. Okay. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I can make all those receipts on the internet. I would easily be able to, you know, copy and paste enough things into Canva or wherever else that I could probably duplicate just about anything on the internet. It's not that hard. But they want order confirmation, they want order shipping, they want fulfillment updates. Amazon is trying to obviously understand your supply chain, you know? Are you legitimately buying this? Or was it shipped to a place that you're in control of, or was this sent somewhere where you can't see it, you can't touch it, you have no control over it, and it gets taken out for something else. Okay. um and so they want to know the whole process. uh and then you get 14 days to do this video interview. You need to make sure you have all these documents done ahead of time because you're going to upload them before your video interview happens. All right. And now we should talk about the video interview, because it was interesting. It was not what I expected. I expected some young person in an Oxford to hop on a call with me, with Seattle in the background, and that was not the way it was. It was obviously a worker in another country. I am basing that on their accent. Okay, but 90%, 95% sure it was a worker in another country. I'm also 90% sure that it was not a regular Amazon employee, but a contract worker. When we talk to seller support, we know that they're in other countries, which is fine. I'm all about outsourcing, so I'm not worried about that. But uh, they're usually in an office. You can hear other calls in the background. You can hear the phone ringing. It sounds like an office that they're in. The person that I spoke with was in their home. Okay. And the reason I could tell is, it was not the most professional call. There were dogs barking in the background. There were a couple of kids knocking bowls over in the kitchen. And she asked me to hold on a couple of times. I'm guessing while she's throwing a shoe at one of the kids or something. It would fine, no big deal. It was a one-way video. So it was just me on screen. I could not see them. Um, but here's some of the things I think we need to think about, because I've heard some absolute horror stories. One, be kind to this person. Like, they are not the one who suspended you. They are not the one who can get you reinstated. They're an order taker. Okay, they are trying to make ends meet. They are given this script of things that Amazon wants them to ask you and gather all the information for, and then they pass it on to someone else. Um, I have I have heard of 3 or 4 stories of people swearing at, yelling at these people over the phone for asking the questions that they obviously didn't come up with. It says a lot about it says a lot about the person who does that. And if you're someone who, has sworn at one of these people, or treats them like garbage, and you don't get your account back, I almost don't feel bad for you. Like treating a server poorly, at a restaurant, because the kitchen is running a little slow. Um, but the other thing is, it's going to feel like you're getting asked questions that feel like an invasion of privacy. They're going to go over and above, and it's what Amazon wants. It's not what they're curious about. They're going to ask you about bank account information. They're going to ask you when you created your account. They're going to ask about people who have had access to your account. They asked about who my wife was. They asked who my sister-in-law was, who used to live with me years and years ago and had her own Amazon seller account. Um, they're going to ask, what bank account and credit card information you have on file. And then they might even ask you to show them. There have been times when people have been asked to log into their bank account on screen and say, hey, can you show me that these purchases were made with your credit card and it was paid with your bank account? I didn't have to show them on screen, but I had to show that. I had to show, here's where the inventory was purchased from this credit card. And if you go over here to this bank account, here's where that credit card was paid. All right. Just to show them that everything is coming from me. I'm not selling for some third party or something like that. They asked who the suppliers were, who they are. So I had to explain that this is who this is, and this is where their home office is located. Do they have any contact details? I got a little scared on one, because there was one supplier. I was able to find their address. I could find a whole bunch of information, but they specifically stated, like, we don't have phones. Like, there is no way to call us. There is no phone number. It doesn't exist. And that worried me a little bit. But have as much contact details as you possibly can. And then they even asked about shipment ID, and they wanted like chain of custody verification. What were the specifics of an inbound shipment to Amazon? Where was it prepped? Where was it sent? When you purchased it, where did it go? Did it come to you? Did it go to a prep center? And if it got to the prep center, how do I know? You know, Fortunately, my prep center, when they create your shipment, they actually take video. I also happen to be friends with the prep center owner, so if I need a favor, I can usually ask for it. But they actually take video, and I could get access to that video of them prepping my items only. Uh, they asked when things were delivered. They asked if I knew how it was packaged, all of that stuff. And you need to be able to answer all of these things so that it looks like you know what's going on in your business, like you're the one in control. That's what they want. They want to know that you've got your hands on the wheel.
Again, another knock against automation. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
So I
they
mean,
want to
you can
know
kind of,
you're driving.
yeah, and you can kind of see this coming together with what we talked about in the beginning. The things that they're trying to eliminate. It's what they're asking for. It's always helpful to ask why they're doing what they're doing. See, it's important as a business owner to tell yourself that too. Why am I? You need to know why you're
Mhm.
doing what you're doing. So and think about that when you're collecting your documentation. All the way down the line. This is the type of thing where um, all the stuff that you do, scan and retail receipts, and all of the stuff that feels like overkill. It's only something like this, and how many? Can I ask how many products did they shine a spotlight on? How much verification, or how many different ASINs did you have to verify?
It was only 3. It was only 3 for me.
Okay. So there you go. So think about, people who do retail arbitrage. Think about all the different ASINs that you've purchased through these stores, all of the different products on the receipts. You're doing all that work and it feels like overkill. It feels excessive. But when it comes down to it, you may need to only pick out 3 of these over the course of who knows how many years, or how far back they're going to look. And that's what you're doing it for.
Yep.
You know, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
It's
it
good
really
perspective
is.
too.
Yeah, but and you're right. That question why, it is incredibly I mean, it's just if you go back to one of it's great plug for one of our other pods, but we talked a lot about we talked mental models, we talked first principles in one of our podcasts or in 2 of our podcast episodes. And that why question is a really great way to get to first principles thinking, which can help us kind of decode why others, this is including Amazon, and we could even talk other retailers, why they're doing certain things. But even more importantly, why we're doing it, and maybe break it down to a simpler reason, um,
Hmm.
and maybe add or subtract. There's something interesting that happened. We're recording on Monday the 14th. Over the weekend, SpaceX launched a rocket and then caught it with their chopsticks. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did.
Yeah, but one of the things that was interesting is the people who were talking about it were actually talking, oh well, we come from a first principles thinking, and so they were discussing the way that the engines were looking when they were firing to slow it down as they were catching it at the podium. And they're like, oh, they look like they might be getting a little bit too hot. And they're like, well, that's all right, because we know that this round of engines, we did not put the cooling on the engine shields. We wanted to see if they would last without that. And so now we'll go in and we'll look and we'll see, well, maybe do we need to add some of these cooling lines? And it's an interesting first principles approach, to a business. Like, let's strip away everything we can to just the most valuable, and then we'll only add in the things that we absolutely need. Anyway, we get off on a tangent on that, but it was an interesting thing to listen to. Okay. After your video verification in which you were kind to the person on the other end, there is going to be a follow-up. There's actually gonna be 2 follow-ups. All right. Number 1 is going to be the follow-up that says, thank you for joining your video call. You need to complete your identity verification. Or essentially, you've got to give Amazon the same thing over again, which is frustrating. I don't like telling people the same thing twice. It irritates me. But you've got to do that in this particular case. So Amazon sent an email and they said, if you have a registered business, send your registration documents. Uh, and they wanted everything. If you've got supply chain documents such as invoices and receipts, send those over. Send proof of delivery, bill of lading. You'll remember I've already uploaded these once to Amazon. Okay. Send over your order confirmation, your order shipping. But then they asked for a couple more things. All right. They asked for a contract and payment of proof with the prep center. They asked for a contract and payment of proof with the virtual assistant. So virtual assistant with the word assistant spelled wrong. And so you need to make sure to have these. These are things that in the future I think are going to be important to have. If you sign up for a service, whether it's a prep center, a reverse logistics place, you have a virtual assistant or an employee or a partner, all of these things, anybody who might have access to your account, you're going to need to have some documentation in place. I was expecting these things, and this is further proof that Amazon is really wanting to know who's got their hands on the wheel. All right. So, what is, if you have someone working for you or with you and they've got access to your account, what are they doing? Is it all detailed, in some sort of contract? And then, especially with prep centers, they want to know, like, what's going on. What are you doing with them? What are they doing? What is their prep process? They want to make sure that even though the items are not coming directly to you, that your 3PL or prep center is not screwing around and maybe taking your goods and sending off counterfeit goods. Like, Amazon wants to know the entire process now. So you need to have this in place. If you have a prep center now and you don't have a contract, it's time to get on the phone and say, hey, we got to have a contract in place, because if I get a Section 3, I know that I may have to prove this to Amazon. Same with your virtual assistant. Have some sort of contract in place. Lay out what they're doing. Maybe they don't have access to your Amazon seller account. Maybe they're just sourcing for you. That's okay. Just lay it out in a document and be like, hey, we both need to sign this. Be honest with you, your virtual assistant's probably in another country. The paper is probably worth more than the agreement is anyway. It's like, how are you going to enforce that? But it'll be good to have those things in place. And then finally, in my opinion is the way that you format these things is just as important as having all the documents together. Imagine with me for a moment that you are an Amazon employee and Amazon is sending out thousands of Section 3s, and there's 20 of you who are going through all of these documents. You know what? Let me just open up. I'm not going to be able to share it on screen here, but my final documentation that I sent into Amazon was 62 pages. Was 62 pages for 3 ASINs. All right. So they've got to go through, 60 to 100 to 120 pages of documentations for these Section 3s. And they are often timed. You got to get through so many of them per day. All right. Now, Amazon doesn't tell us that, but I know. I know that there are KPIs in place, and the number of responses in a day is obviously one of them. So, helping the person be able to get through your documentation quickly, knowing exactly what it is, what they're looking at, what they're looking for, is incredibly helpful, in my opinion. The way that I put everything together is the first thing was a cover page, right? And that cover page said, open this back up, said right at the very top in title, H1 tag, business registration documents. Please find attached electronic articles of incorporation, operating agreement, initial resolutions, the screen print from the state that I'm registered in, the IRS employee identification number, right? And that was all bulleted. And this is exactly what to find. And then it went through all of those documents. Okay. There was another cover page. Supply chain documentation. Please find attached receipt for ASIN X, receipt for the next one, and so on. And then after that, we had the proof of delivery. So I put proof of delivery separate from the order confirmations. All right. I had another thing, another cover page for the order confirmations, another cover page for shipping confirmations. I made sure that everything could be read by a third grader and they would understand exactly what they were looking at. It was in order, exactly how they asked for it. Okay. Amazon asked for it in a specific way. I'm going to give it to them back that exact way. And then here's one of the other things. Okay. Please, I sent 62 pages. Do not send them 62 different PDFs. Do not, send them. I think it was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 6 different sets of documents. Do not send them 6 PDFs. Get everything together, go to merge PDF and put these all into one document. So it is in one PDF that they have to open and they can scroll through the entire thing. Make their life as simple and as easy as you possibly can. All right. Now, I know some people are going to ask, well, should I mark things up? I don't think that annotating or marking things up on the first submission is the way to go. I sent what we'll call naked documents. I think that's the way to go on the first one, and keep the annotations kind of as an arrow in your quiver to use on a second submission if necessary. But I think that the way that I basically want to turn into paper like I would turn into, a college professor, or, someone who has to read through a bunch of really boring garbage to make it as simple on them as possible. And my opinion is because that was done the way that I did it, that probably made my suspension shorter than a lot of other people's.
You said something that I think needs to be emphasized again. These people have. You mentioned that they're contract workers, right?
Mhm.
This is not their. They obviously whether it be volume or whatnot, but Amazon had to go outside and find people to conduct these reviews. So obviously they're not intimate with the documents that they're looking at. I mean, obviously I'm sure they've been trained and there was some sort of orientation and whatnot, but you can't expect them to be certainly not as proficient as we are with the environment that they're working in. So yeah, and you said 6 different sets of documents. You had 60 some odd pages, 6 sets of documents. So that means you had 6 different cover pages, correct?
Correct.
So as they get this email, this contract worker who no doubt has some sort of quota of how many they need to get through. So it's one attachment that they can open up and they can scroll through, and there's a bright white cover page telling them specifically what they're about to see over the next several documents. They can scroll through that on the same without clicking anywhere else to any other screen. And then they go through a handful of documents, and then there's another bright white cover page with further instructions on what the next section is going to be. Right? Think about how easy this is. And now, what if this is somebody in a foreign country, which we think it probably is, doing this remotely, which probably is, probably good chance there's only one screen that they're using,
Very well
right?
could be.
So now they've got to click, through your email and the documentation and click back to whatever their proprietary Amazon, uh, you know, uh, uh, portal is, where they have to record this information. So, think about what that's like for someone, who just learned how to do this, to go to the Amazon portal, your documentation, and then think about what that process would be if it was multiple attachments in an email, and they have to
Mhm.
figure out which one, what was where, and you had, say you didn't do it the way you did, and you had 50 different attachments, or email might not even let you send that many attachments. They had sent 3 different emails. So now you have this person trying to figure out which email you said it was in, and then which attachment in which email. And then how much of that does this contract worker go through before they have the same exact thought as the entry level fulfillment center person who just like, you know what, I'm running out of time. I'm not going to get through this. This is frustrating. I'm going to punch a hole in the box and mark it 0 and just send it down the line and go to the next one, which I hope is easier so I can meet my quota.
Exactly. Exactly. You need to do this so that it can be understood by the weakest link in the chain. Okay. Imagine this. It is, you're dealing with somebody again, like we've said multiple times, probably in another country, probably a contract worker, could be working from home, could be on a single screen. It's 11:55 a.m. They're hungry. Their kids just knocked, lunch off the counter and they got done throwing a flip flop at them. And the dog is barking because it needs to go outside. They've got your, 15 different attachments open, but they forgot to close the 2 that Bill sent from the last submission they were looking at. So they're getting confused going between all of those and accidentally coming across bills yet again. It's not going to work. It's not. You're going to do exactly what you said. They're gonna push it off and send it back, and you're not going to get reinstated because it was too hard. You've got to make it simple for them.
Yeah. By that's I got to imagine that would solve a lot of these issues, a lot of the problems, a lot of the multiple submissions. Uh, you know, if we just took a little, if we just made it as clear as possible, you know.
I'm I'm going to be a little hard on the sellers right now. We as sellers, we talk a lot about Amazon. Amazon needs to be better. You know, do better. Work with us, Amazon. Something popular on AST. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called, but they say all the time, work with us, Amazon. Now we need to be better. We need to be the professionals. Maybe this is a side gig for you. Maybe you don't have your whole heart into it. That's fine. But like, this is a business. What other business do people like? Do they I mean, sure, maybe some contractors half-ass it, but yeah, professionals don't half-ass it. They whole-ass it. Let's like, and if we want to take this serious, we want to be, the next Jeff, the next Kim and Perry, the next Eli. Like, let's put our back into it, and give Amazon what they're looking for. We may not like it, it may not feel fair sometimes, but that's the way it is. So I think as sellers, we need to do better, especially when it comes to this kind of thing. And it's not hard. Like this, it's not like it was painstaking or it took me, 8 hours. Like I just made a bunch of PDF documents in Google Docs. I saved them with names. I loaded them up into Merge PDF. I clicked a button, done. It's not like I was backbreaking work for 8 hours to be able to do all this.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of sellers kind of think that they're just hopping onto a train. They're just hobos holding your hand out, and they're like, "Hey, this train's going to so and so," and you just kind of hop on, and you settle in, and you go along for the ride, and you're like, "Hey, I hopped on mid trip," we kind of have an attitude if we're inconvenienced. We think it's
Mhm.
this ecosystem, and you should just be able to jump on, and that it's not like some legitimate business, that you may need to be responsible for what you do. And I think maybe we need to realize that we're guests a little bit more. That when Amazon says it's our store, air quotes. Yeah, I think most of the time it is their store and we're guests, so
Mhm.
there's going to be times where, we got to follow some house rules, and
Yeah.
that's not putting us out, and it's not a reason to have an attitude about it, and just like whatever here, I mean, we're kind of like petulant teenagers, in a sense, if we're just like, all right, whatever, there's 52 attachments, here, do work with us, Amazon hashtag, like, why don't you run a legitimate business? I mean,
Yeah.
for the potential that's here, it might be worth a little bit of your attention and definitely a little detail.
Yeah. Now, for anybody who is about to get, and for anybody who's listening an hour and a half in, which I think this can be a popular episode, but yeah, for anybody who gets mad at this, remember two things can be true at the same time. Okay, we may be admonishing the seller, a bit, which can be true. We need to take this seriously as sellers. We need to treat this like a business. Amazon can do things wrong. Like they can both be true. So don't come at us. Don't add us on Twitter, telling us we're just Amazon apologists. Because if that was the case, we would never say, "Oh, hey, I had a section 3 had to clean up. Here's how to fix it. Here's how to handle it in a professional manner." We would just acted like it never happened, and it's just one of those things that is not really a big deal. So, all right, now we're getting very close to the end here. The next thing is that you're going to get a survey. All right. Now, I was back and forth on including this, but if for nothing else, this is just good karma. Okay. But you're gonna get an email that says, "Thank you for completing your virtual identity verification. We would love to hear your experience through a quick survey. It'll take less than 2 minutes, and it'll help us create a better experience for our customers." And it's hosted by Qualtrics, which is a well-known corporate feedback company. Um, you're basically giving a grade to the person who did the video interview. Do they get to see it? I have no idea, but she was very, very adamant that this be done. She's like, "I really need you to make sure you take this." So, uh, asking why again? Why would she be so adamant about me taking this? Why would she bring it up, twice on the call to make sure that I take it? Well, chances are this thing goes to whoever her direct supervisor is, and it could either be a reason that someone is let go. It could be a reason that someone gets advancement. Could be a way that they are bonused, could have all kinds of factors at play. Maybe they actually get to see the results from every single one of these. All right. Just take the 2 minutes and do it. And if they do not be harsh on them because you're pissed off that you're going through a section 3. If they were kind and they asked you the questions and they got through what they were supposed to do, give them tens. Like even if it has no bearing on you getting reinstated or not, a couple of karma points are not going to hurt anybody, for maybe helping someone get over that mark to the next bonus or keeping their job for another month. A job that, can you imagine? I mean, that job sucks. Can you
Oh,
imagine having to do that every single day?
no, absolutely not. I mean, I feel bad for my VAs, like I almost, yeah, sometimes I feel like giving them different stuff to do just because I feel the monotony by proxy.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Just do the right thing here. Just take 2 minutes of your time. It's good for the soul. All right. Now, last thing, you're either going to get a reinstatement email or you're going to get follow up. They want more information. Now, I was fortunate. I got the reinstatement email. Okay. But once you submit your documentation, it's just a waiting game. All right. Now, there is, and I'm going to say this very clearly, there is anecdotal evidence that suggests that if you submit it again because you haven't heard from them in 48 hours, that maybe you go back to the end of the line. Nobody at Amazon says that. Okay. It's just anecdotal. I've seen people who have not been patient and, for 24 hours, 48 hours comes, I haven't heard anything back. I'm going to resubmit it. And then it takes 3 more days. Okay. When it's supposed to be like 36 hours that they get back to you. So it's very anecdotal. Can't say it's actually the true. Just feels like that. Like you hate it when someone like nudges you via email. Imagine, getting nudged 3,600 times a day via email. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. Now, if you have questions, you can email inbound-appeals@amazon.com and you can inquire about the status and things like that. You can hop on the phone with Account Health. But again, anecdotal evidence states that they're not really that helpful. I think, because I've heard from some people, oh, well, I talked to my account health rep and they said that we should expect tens of thousands of more of these Section 3s. Yeah, is that the case, or is that the gossip going around the water cooler because there was a memo put out about, hey, there's going to be an increase in Section 3s, and that goes from, oh, we're going to see a 30% increase in Section 3s to, can you believe they're going to be doing 30,000 Section 3s tomorrow? I mean, that very easily. If you think there's not the office gossip just because they might be in another country, you're sorely mistaken. You've dealt with one at your work. There's one at every office around the world.
Yep.
But yeah, you can reach out to them. Make sure to take everything that you're told with a grain of salt. Think about it from your own perspective. Think about, ask that question why, go a little bit deeper. And then if you do have to do a follow up, give them more information. Okay. For example, they wanted contract and payment proof with my prep center. If they come back and say, hey, we need more information about your prep center, well, why are they asking that? You know, they want to make sure that the items are maybe being polybagged properly, or that items are able to be withstand that 3 foot drop, or they want to make sure that someone at the prep center isn't swiping the items and switching them out for something else. So what kind of documentation could I give them from my prep center to show them that if the contract and the proof of payment weren't enough? I bet my prep center could take a video of packaging up one of my boxes, or maybe they could share one of their SOPs about how things are supposed to be prepped, or maybe they could send me over some photos that I could put into that PDF stack showing how the item was received, how it was prepped, and then how it was placed into a box. Right? May not be fun, but like, dive a little bit deeper, give them more information. And then we talked about holding that other arrow in your quiver of annotation. If they're like, hey, I really need you to prove to me where this came from. Okay, well, you've showed them the receipt. Maybe they're like, well, I don't know what this place is. Walmart's pretty easy, right? One of my suppliers was a place that I had never heard of till I purchased from them. I did some background on them. I made sure that they had a good Trust Pilot rating. Their social media was good. I made sure they've been around for a while. They didn't have a phone number. So my very first thought was, I'm going to have to show more information. All right. Find the CEO's LinkedIn and get that and print that off. Find their About Us page. Find the documents for the LLC or whatever runs the company. Show them more. Mark on there, and I say mark, annotate. Okay, highlight the item on the receipt. Annotate where the place is from. Some receipts, especially with online arbitrage, they're not going to have the address. So if it's Walmart.com, right at the bottom, right in red, Walmart.com. I don't know, Walmart Way in Alabama or Arkansas or wherever their headquarters is. Write that down at the bottom. As long as you're not forging the information and there's an easy way to prove it, that's okay to annotate your documents. And then don't alter, don't forge them. Include those cover pages, merge those PDFs, make sure everything is tight and clean and good looking. And you should be able to get through these as long as your documentation shows that you're sourcing from legitimate places, whether it's retail arbitrage, whether it's online arbitrage, wholesale, whatever it is, as long as you're following the rules, these are all overcomable, in my opinion.
Yeah. When these first came out, when we first started talking about these Section 3s, and as we've monitored it it's been several months, that this has been a topic of conversation. The overwhelming majority of the time, we find that the people who do things right eventually get their accounts back. I believe that's a true statement. Um, and I think, and there's going to be people listening to this that are like, well, I'm on my fifth try and I did everything right. Um, what you have to figure is if they've asked you for follow-up, that likely means something wasn't clear, you know.
Mhm.
um and go back to the part where we talked about who you're dealing with, right? That's not, you need to, it's going to create an emotional response in you, whether that be anger or frustration or whatever, but you need to kind of compartmentalize that and focus back on who you're talking to. It's not it's not a mark against you. It isn't Amazon saying that's not legit. You're a bad seller. That's not what they're saying. That means that someone that they've hired to process this for them uh, wasn't w- uh, wasn't 100% sure, or it didn't meet 100% of the criteria that they have been trained, likely very recently. Uh, it doesn't match what they've been told to look for. So,
Mhm.
and you know, I'm willing to bet that it's a matter of formatting and um, walking them through it a little clearer
Mhm.
would probably solve a lot of this stuff. That's just my guess. And I know, probably most people out there are saying, well, no, I sent a great email. It's obvious, but we've talked about a lot of different stuff in this business and entrepreneurship in general. It's tough to remember what it was like when you didn't know something, and it's tough to remove yourself and put yourself back in the front of the house after working in the back of the house. It's tough to take the Amazon seller out of stuff. So what you think is clear, get a second opinion, even, grab a spouse, we're about to hit the holiday season. Grab one of those people that you have to explain what you do all over again for the eighth year in a row. Ask them if they think something's clear, or find somebody else, somebody outside of it, and see if they think it's clear. I think that'll
What a
solve
great
a lot of
idea.
problems.
That is a really good idea.
Yeah, I gotta think it would help a lot of these people that are having to do this over and over again, right?
Yeah, I would like to think so. Man, that really is a good idea. Having someone who doesn't look at this stuff day in and day out, look at it and say, "Hey, can you just tell me, like, what am I trying to show you here?" What that's a if nobody gets anything else out of this, I hope that they take that away, because that is a really good idea.
But
Um,
even so, there are sellers going, "Well, what if they start their own Amazon store?
oh,
They'll see
jeez,
my inventory."
right? Um, the way that I really want to wrap this up is, I'll be honest, while this did get in the way of some plans, I'm actually glad that this happened. Uh, and the reason I'm glad that this happened is because, I got to get to walk the talk. I get to go through the process and show everybody that, yeah, as long as you're following the rules and you're doing what Amazon wants, like, this is how to handle it. This is how to get through it without too much trouble. And also, like, here's how we separate our emotion from this business. Listen, business is emotional. I ride the roller coaster myself. Like it's hard not to. 1 minute I'm an absolute freaking genius. The next minute I'm the dumbest human to ever have disgraced this earth with my presence. But it's important that we're able to step back, remove our emotional response from these situations so that we can objectively handle the problems that come our way. And I think that makes I think that's what separates the people who are like entrepreneurs from the people who are just flipping stuff on Amazon. And I would, if you have trouble doing that, read some books about it. It really is like this is business. It should not be emotional. Emotions are going to get involved. That's the way it is. You're human, but we need to be able to put those away in a box for a little while. I don't know, stuff them down, to put a piece of cake on top of them, and let them stay down for a little while you handle this from an objective manner. And that brings us to the quote this week. Happens to be actually one of my favorite quotes. It comes from Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, the leader of the Roman Empire for a time. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I that might be, maybe it's a little might feel a little woo woo, but I think we need to be a little bit more stoic as entrepreneurs, and do realize that there is just some stuff we absolutely cannot. We have no control over. I had no control over whether Amazon was going to throw me one of these Section 3s, but I did have 100% control of how I reacted emotionally, how I reacted, to what happens, and how I present the information to Amazon. So you handle what you can control, and then you just have to let the rest go. So all right. Uh, Hopefully that was helpful. I believe it should be. And if you got something out of this, let us know. We'd love to hear that. All right. That's the pod.
Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.